Welcome back to the Big Sunday Show. From inflation to the influx of migrants at the border, the crises are piling up for President Biden. Another migrant caravan with up to 15,000 people is set to leave Mexico tomorrow and head for the U.S. And while some in the mainstream media are starting to ask questions about Biden's crises, others are focusing on what they see as the biggest problem facing the country: women having access to vote.
What would you say is the biggest challenge facing women today?
103 years after the passage of the 19th Amendment in the Senate, the challenge and then, frankly, the threat is the white men who have had a monopoly on our society, our democracy, and our country, who continue to block our access to the ballot and our liberty as citizens, as women, and everything that comes with it.
Now, Nicole, there are more women in the Supreme Court and more women in Congress than at any point in history. There are also 2 women in line for the presidency. So is access to the ballot the biggest challenge facing women in America?
Raymond, unfortunately, when people make blanket statements like that, they're quite ignorant, and they negate essentially everything that the women for the last century have done to make sure that we as women today can have some of these freedoms. Sure, is everything completely fair? No, and like I tell my children every single day, life's not fair, okay? And whether it's man versus woman, whether it is certain other things, at the end of the day, when we are looking at the crises that our country is faced with right now, women's suffrage is not one of them. But as a woman who is raising 3 white males, I have a huge problem with the fact that for some reason it is okay to make these universal negative statements, stereotypical statements about the white man. We continue to talk about the fact that the family unit is broken, and that is why you are seeing so much violence, especially among young males. But if we continue to beat down the young males who are growing up, and you're not lifting them up, you're telling them because they're born a man that they are bad. This is part of our fundamental problem. We need to be looking forward. We have to be grateful for what we have right now. We still have issues when it comes to equality. There's still more work to be done. But to say that women's right to vote and access to voting is one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with right now, it is a laughing stock. And to be honest, it's embarrassing from coming from a woman.
What does she even
Gianna,
mean? I'm confused.
Yeah, well, I've
she
got to
doesn't
get.
know
I've
what
got to
she's
get back
talking
to,
about. That's the problem.
I've got to get back to what we mentioned a little earlier. Gianna, the largest migrant caravan ever, 15,000 people strong, is headed up toward Mexico and the U.S. border. Now, given Biden's border policies, what do you expect to see there?
More people coming in. And I'm going to tell you, Raymond, I think Joe Biden is just about as serious about fixing the border issue is Captain Crunch is about joining the military. It's laughable at this point. We got all of these people coming in. They're
maybe
crossing
after
over.
seeing Maverick.
Oh, maybe. But these folks are crossing over, and they're bringing drugs. They're bringing fentanyl. For the first time in our country's history, 100,000 people have died from an overdose of a drug within a year's time. That's insane to me, and it breaks my heart because I grew up with a mother who was addicted to crack cocaine, and it reverberates throughout the entire family. Even now with me, I'm still dealing with issues in therapy, abandonment issues, and other things. You don't know what this may lead to with someone who may not be as strong as me and how they can go take a gun and do anything like a school shooting or whatever the case may be. We need to get this border issue under control immediately because lives are literally at stake.
You raise such a great point that the illegal immigrant trade, and it is a trade with these coyotes, drugs fuel a lot of it. They become mules or distractions so the drug cartels can move their drugs on other points of the river. Just over Memorial Day weekend, we should say quickly, 4,000 people illegally entered the country just in the Del Rio sector. That's an incredible statistic. Jillian, you're the mother of a baby. I want to move on to some political considerations here.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I want to talk about Coco.
No, I
got
won't.
excited.
I won't. Or about Captain Crunch, which I hope you're not feeding your baby. But while the Democrats believe they can ride Roe v. Wade to election victory with women and mothers, there's a more immediate concern here that they seem to be ignoring. I want to play you something the Commerce Secretary said. This is from earlier today, talking about that baby formula shortage.
When did you first learn of this problem? I first learned about it, a couple of months ago. So this is this is a difficult issue, but yes, probably April. I'm not involved in the administration's response here.
She's not involved. She's a member of the cabinet. Jillian,
That's not what the
they
White
knew
House
about
said
the
either.
problem. Yeah, they knew about the problem at that baby formula plant in Michigan in October, and she didn't wake up till April. How will this baby formula shortage, you think, affect the midterms and mothers' votes?
Well, it depends if they clean it up in time before people get to the polls, and it is looking like it's going to be another 2 to 3 months before the formula, even though, by the way, that Abbott plant is now up and running again, but it's going to be 2 to 3 months, the execs say, until that formula hits the shelves and parents can actually get access to it. So we're creeping up on the midterms here. That memory will be fresh in everybody's mind when they go to the polls. When you were talking just now, Raymond, it struck me that this is exactly one of those issues we talked about yesterday where there is an underlying crisis, a real policy problem, and then there is also a major messaging problem, because we have now heard from the White House press secretary and the communications team iterations of this story that are wildly contradictory. So at first, a few weeks ago, it was the FDA knew about this crisis, this looming crisis, and saw it coming, but the White House didn't know. Then it was the president didn't know, but the White House the White House staff knew, and then now it is some iteration of actually the whole thing is the manufacturer's fault in the first place. Yeah. It's a kind of situation that can actually be made worse by bad messaging because it sows chaos and fear, and that's exactly what's happened here.
And no accountability from Biden, and is impacting his poll numbers with everyone, including African Americans who I know
this
are.
Week,
Go ahead.
The Democrats are going to try to get everybody to focus on January 6th this week. I think when your baby's hungry and gas is through the roof, that's a hard thing for America to focus on.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.